Okay, I will start now, bro. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the World Species Congress, the first ever species congress organized by Reverse the Rate and IUCN. To celebrate this, we are organizing a series of species-focused panel discussion. The theme of these events are Beyond Talk, transforming ideas into impactful local interventions. Well, who we are? We're actually from the course called Wetland Ecology, Biodiversity and Conservation, a 6-month course given by IUCN, SSC Freshwater Conservation Committee, and the Fishing Camp Project. And today, I'm Chiyong Wu from Malaysia, one of the participants. So today, the spotlight is on the Hairy-Nosed Otter. We are all gathered here contribute to Hairy-Nosed Otter conservation of Southeast Asia. In today's discussion, we hope to answer an important question: the rare and threatened Hairy-Nosed Otters as a flagship species of Peat swamp in Southeast Asia. And we are very delightful to have one of the experts here in Malaysia from Malaysia. So let me introduce Prof. Dr. Muhammad Azlan Jayasilian bin Abdul Gulam Azhar from the Institute of Biodiversity and Environmental Conservation, University Malaysia, Sarawak. Hi, Prof.
Hi, thank you, Chiong. Thank you for inviting for this exciting talk that you have planned, and I hope it will shed some light on this very interesting species that we are going to talk about today.
Yes, thank you, Prof. Yeah, both of us are from Malaysia, and we surely have a lot of common things, and we can discuss a lot of things. And we know what is the status of Hairy-Nosed Otter now in Malaysia. In fact, well, I think first of all, Prof. Azlan, maybe tell us briefly about your organization and maybe about your works on Hairy-Nosed Otters. Yeah.
Well, I represent the Institute of Biodiversity and Environmental Conservation, University of Malaysia, Sarawak. We are institute that focus on biodiversity conservation related research. So many of us work on various taxonomic species. Some of us work on plants, while others on species of conservation importance, including otters in Borneo, but more focused in Sarawak, if I could say that. So the work that relates to otter has some implication on understanding where it can be found. The baseline information is pretty much where we are right now. Their distribution, their habitat preference, their diet. So these are some of the things that we are intending to do the work on. So from for the last 20 years or so, we have used various techniques and methods to understand distribution of various medium to large mammal species, including the hairy-nosed otters.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. There's a lot of works that Prof has been done, and I know Prof from all the works of camera trapping, especially in carnivore species. But while Prof has worked with so many species, but what is your take on the status of Hairy-Nosed Otter in Malaysia here? What are the status and how well are they doing actually in terms of their populations?
I mean, very little is known on this particular species of otter. We have other species which has been well studied, at least in terms of their distribution and some part of their ecology. But the hairy-nosed has been very elusive, especially in Sarawak. They have been very scarce in terms of the information, despite the fact that they are quite widely distributed. For example, they've been recorded in Vietnam, southern Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, Sumatra, many parts of Borneo, as well as in some small islands nearby Singapore. There have been historical records of this particular species, suggesting it's pretty widespread in that particular context. However, having said that, this species was classified as endangered because by the IUCN 2020 because of the population reduction, and the population seems to be continuously reducing, and the observed occupancy is also being projected to be reduced. This is mostly caused by the changes in the habitat structure, the changes in the habitat availability for this particular species, mostly because of for agriculture and for other activities. Therefore, the competition between a particular industry to establish, as well as the Hairy-Nosed Otter has been in the scenario. So we have been setting up cameras throughout Sarawak for over 20 years now. We have hundreds and thousands of photo images. Of that, we have only recorded 2 Hairy-Nosed Otter photographs camera trap in the northern part of Sarawak, in one of the protected areas, Mr. Teo.
Right, right. That's interesting. I think we will talk more about that with that. You mentioned that 2 sites, with only 2 sites that you have Hairy-Nosed Otters records. But go back to the very first things that you have mentioned. There's so little research and so little knowledge or information about this Hairy-Nosed. Probably what are the reasons? Because you see, otters is a considered not say 2 very charismatic species, but they are cute and they are kind of like some of the part is well known to the world that otters exist in this world. But what are the reasons exactly like contribute to so little research about Hairy-Nosed Otter in Malaysia or in Southeast Asia? What do you think?
In general, there are many species would fall under this category, meaning that understudied species. There's so many understudied species that we have in our region. Some of it has partly to do with getting support from communities, support from various conservation NGOs, and interest among researchers to take up the challenge on studying the Hairy-Nosed Otter. For example, if you want to do a PhD research on the Hairy-Nosed Otter, you have to think really carefully. Do you have enough data to write a thesis, right? So it's a challenging subject. Therefore, I think many research has not focused on species that are associated with aquatic environment, right? So the Hairy-Nosed Otter is one of it.
Yeah. It
Yep.
seems like if it's associated with aquatic, it's a bit posting a more challenge to study when compared to terrestrial animal. Yeah. Well, that's well explained, like why so little research and probably not just Malaysia, I would say, around the Southeast Asia. There's not much of study. When we look at literature review, even myself look at literature review, we don't really find a lot of people published about Hairy-Nosed Otter. Well, also the second part, when you talk about the threats that the Hairy-Nosed Otter facing with the habitat destruction. So, well, do you think that Hairy-Nosed Otter can be a flagship species of this habitat, especially on the Peat Swamp forest?
Now, if you take the definition for flagship species is that a species that would have support from communities, from general public, and it may not be it may not be a species of conservation importance, critically needed assistance for its existence, but it receives support from the public. Now, the awareness on this particular species need to be increased so that general public is aware of the presence of the species and why the species has to be protected and the functionality it plays in the general ecosystem. If this information can be shared and people can value the species from that particular perspective, perhaps you can get support, and therefore it could be used as a flagship species as for conserving its habitat and protection of this particular species.
Yeah, right. Well, also I think let's dig deeper into the project that Prof has done, and the camera trapping project, and just like to know like how many peat swamp sites that Prof has been surveying throughout the camera trap in Sarawak.
Now, peat swamp has been always a challenging environment for us to work, especially when we're setting up cameras. We don't want our cameras to be flooded during high tide as well as during heavy downpour. So we have been really careful when setting up cameras in the peat swamp areas. We set up quite high up in the tree, and sometimes when we do that, the focal area or the area that we can trap animals through the cameras will be very limited. Yeah. So the detection rate is quite challenging in that particular context. So even though a species is not being detected in the peat swamp forest in this particular context of the hairy-nosed otter, it does not necessarily mean that that particular species is absent in that particular forest, right? So non-detection not necessarily means absence. So that's what we're trying to work around, try and look at species distribution throughout Sarawak. Now, coming back to the hairy-nosed otter in peat swamp forest and the number of peat swamp areas that we have studied, we have several areas that we have looked into in northern part of Sarawak, some in central part of Sarawak, and some in the western part of Sarawak. So we have 3 or 4 peat swamp, purely peat swamp areas that we have worked on. And we have also set up some cameras in mixed peat swamp areas. So meaning it has some secondary forest, it's a peat swamp forest kind of habitat. Of all those, we have, which I said, over 20 years, over hundreds and hundreds of independent camera trap images. We have only got 2 shots of hairy-nosed otter in 1 protected areas in Sarawak. So, which beg the questions, should we be looking more into peat swamp areas? Do we need to have a special way of sampling in peat swamp areas besides the conventional way of setting cameras? So these are some of the technicality I think that we need to probably look into in order for us to better understand that these interesting species.
Yeah. This will, I think, will come a later part, when we talk about what are probably the most important actions that need to be taken to improve the conservation of hairy-nosed. I think you have well covered that we need to develop probably a method in order to study these hairy-nosed otters. Well, because based on some of the literature finding that we try to do, and then we saw that most of the hairy-nosed otters are more recorded more frequently in peat swamp, not just in Malaysia but in Thailand, in Myanmar, and also in Vietnam. Probably what is your take on this? Like, what could be the possible reason that hairy-nosed otter is more frequently found in peat swamp? Of course, they also can be found in other habitat types.
Yeah. We have to bear in mind that the hairy-nosed otter is also found in lowland riverine habitat, right? What we can say pretty conclusively is it's very closely associated with aquatic habitat, inland forest habitat, I would say. So why they are frequently recorded in a peat swamp habitat, I have not done enough research to answer this particular question. But then I could postulate, I would assume that this species had some particular prey species that are also associated with this kind of habitat, and it is probably more protected in this particular sense in the peat swamp habitat, because peat swamp is a very difficult place for you to work. It's very dense, it's wet. I wouldn't think people would frequent this kind of forest for recreational purpose very frequently when it compared to tropical lowland forest.
Yeah.
So that would be my best guess, I would say.
No worries. Yes, but they also actually really highlight the also importance of peat swamp as a carbon sequestration and carbon storage. How peat swamp really playing that important role in that part as well, worldwide. Even though peat swamp forest is just taking very small areas when compared to all the other forest habitat, but that is very important. But let's just maybe talk a bit more on the forest habitat, which is the peat swamp. Well, what are the threats to this peat swamp forest currently in the context of Malaysia?
Currently, as it stands right now, I don't see much of the previously existing threats seriously happening on the ground anymore. Because if you're looking at peat swamp conversion for agricultural purpose, it has almost come to a halt right now. That meaning that no more peat swamps are it's being converted to agriculture in Malaysia because of various factors, right? There could be small pockets of habitat change of peat swamp that might occur in a very small scale. But I don't foresee any large scale peat swamp conversion happening for agricultural purpose in Malaysia in this particular context. Now, peat swamp, once you drain the peat swamp, then it's basically gone. It's
Yeah.
gone. The whole system is completely different. You can't get it back to its original state in a very short period of time. It's very difficult. So that's that with peat swamp. It's pretty sensitive habitat. A lot of peat accumulated over many years. So I would imagine the Hairy-Nosed Otter could be perhaps an indicator species for a good peat swamp forest. Yeah, but of course, for you to acquire that particular knowledge and for you to acknowledge that this Hairy-Nosed Otter is the indicator species for a good peat swamp forest, you have to have a proper study, a good study, sampling across various habitats, and analysis would tell you that they would most likely be a good indicator.
Right. So I think just another side question here. Are the peat swamp forests in Malaysia are still intact, or is still in a large chunk, or it's like very fragmented?
I would imagine the remnant of peat swamp primary or recovered secondary forest that we have left is probably in the protected areas. Outside protected areas, I would imagine the level of disturbance would be relatively high. So peat swamps are quite sensitive area and a sensitive topic as well. So as I mentioned earlier, some of the best remnants and examples of peat swamp forests in Malaysia you can find in protected areas.
Yeah. Because one of the peat swamp area that I work on, which is the North Selangor peat swamp forest, where we survey for otters at the fringe, we actually recorded at least 2 roadkill of Hairy-Nosed Otter now. While the peat swamp is surrounded by oil palm plantations and also paddy field. So yeah, some things is very interesting that to see like why the Hairy-Nosed Otter actually crossing out getting out from the forest and crossing the road. So this is something that it would be interesting to, like Prof have mentioned, there's a lot of research that needs to be done on this. Well, so probably like now we will see like what are the steps from Prof, what are the recommendations that Prof thinks that needs to be taken to start this initiative of promoting this Hairy-Nosed Otter could be a potential flagship species of peat swamps in Southeast Asia.
I think the more we know, the more we appreciate. So I would imagine and perhaps suggest that we generate more information on this particular species. Very little is known, especially when you look at home range of otters in general, any otters. Yeah, want to study home range, it's very challenging. It's not easy. And even if you use camera traps, it's very difficult to identify individuals. Therefore, it limits many kinds of analysis in that particular context. As such, I would say the initial baseline information, as I mentioned at the beginning of this chat, that baseline information we are still lacking. We are in year 2024? Year 2024, yet if one asks you where is the best place to see Hairy-Nosed Otter in Sarawak, for example, or in other parts of this region, it wouldn't be that simple, that easy. Or you say if you can go to this location, it's highly likely that you will be able to see this particular species.
Yeah.
This is not the case for other otters, right?
Yes, correct. Yeah, that's why we shine the light on Hairy-Nosed Otter, which is a very particular species that we want to bring it up, because there's not such discussion or any dialogues that has been bring up on this particular species, rare and elusive. Yeah, that's why we want to do this. Yeah. So well, would you say like probably the pressing conservation issue that probably need to address for the Hairy-Nosed Otter in this swamp sites now is actually more research to be done? That would be the more pressing conservation issues.
Yes, I mean, in order for you to do research, you need um, people that are passionate on a particular research topic as well as funds to run the project,
Yeah.
right? So if you ask funds for tigers or elephants or charismatic species, the chances of getting them will be probably high when you compare to a non-charismatic species, which is very focused on a certain group of people who are only interested in this particular species. So that itself presents a challenge in generating that sort of resources to endure a long-term research, understanding the distribution ecology of this particular species. Only with the right information we can make the right decision. So by understanding the ecology, the need of this particular species, then we can provide the right recommendation to the authorities so that if any changes that would perhaps enhance a population of hairy-nosed otters, which is doable within our power, then it will be easily done, I suppose.
Yeah, great. I think that was a very great ending. I think I'm very much agree with Prof, especially on the last part, which is giving out the right information to the right authority, because they are the decision makers. We need all this. We need to feed them with all this right information in order to help, to rightly guide them the way to do it. Yeah, I think that's all for today with Prof Azlan, with giving out lots of information and lots of insights into this particular topic for the rare and threatened Hairy-Nosed Otter as a flagship species of peat swamps in Southeast Asia. So thank you, Prof, for your time today. Yeah, hopefully we will see you again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you. I hope this sharing session will perhaps ignite some interest among some of us to pursue research and to know more about this very elusive species in our country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof.